Yes. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this dev meeting. Today, Kimberly is going to talk about our upcoming plans for simulation. You're free to ask questions in the chat and at the end of the presentation. Kimberly, you can go.
Of course. Thanks, Barbara. So it's going to be short and sweet today. I actually we already had a developer meeting about simulation about I think in July. Maybe if somebody of my team can share the link for that, where I actually explained about the weapon simulator, about how to set it up, how to fly with, how the layout works and things like that. So I'm not going to go too much into that because we have a recording of that of a previous developer meeting. So now I'm just going to talk about, let's say, like our upcoming plans for simulation, let's say, or kind of like I would not necessarily say it's our plans. It's also kind of more of like what you guys think as well of a discussion. What would be a nice way forward? There are multiple options. But I would like to kind of start like how the whole why we got into like a little bit more simulation in the first place. So it started about 2 years ago. When I went for a month to the US, I decided to do a kind of completely separate project because I still wanted to keep on working. And that's when I decided to really go and dig into like, okay, what's the state of crazyflie simulators out there? I used it during my own PhD. That I actually made my own simulator of the crazyflie based on I think the Hector Quattrotor Ross project. And that was a really long time ago. So 2 years ago, I felt like, okay, what's the current state? And at the current state, there were a couple simulators that already existed, but were completely external projects. Like, I don't think Bitcraze had anything to do with it, which was called Crazy Yes, which was a spin-off from RotorS, which is a ROS 1 project, which used Gazebo as like, as a simulator, of course. And it's used to do RotorS the projects. I'm not going to go that much further into it. Then you had SimCF, which was an interesting one. That was actually kind of like the first attempt to do a full software in the loop type of deal with the crazyflie firmware. It's a bit old though, so it's not up to date at all. But they actually managed to compile the crazyflie firmware on the computer, and also use Gazebo for that. And I think they even had some type of let's say model of the ultra wideband system in that as well. So that's pretty cool. There was also kind of an RViz based simulator, which is also like a ROS 2 tool. And RViz is not really a simulator, it's just a visualization tool, but this one also kind of made a dynamics model on the side. So those are kind of the links there. You can kind of check it out. But yeah, they're slightly outdated by now. And also, I noticed that there was not really that everybody had to make their own model of the crazyflie, so that didn't really exist at that time. So I made my own, our own model, a very low poly cut model, which you can find on the GitHub link right here in the crazyflie simulator. GitHub repository, which I made in Blender. Because before, I think people made models where they just used a SolidWorks model, a lot of polygons. If you use swarms, that's not going to be great. So that's why I thought, like, let's make a very low poly one. So sometimes later, I created the first crazyflie official model in Webbots. It's like Gazebo, it's another like simulator that's also used a lot by the ROS community, where you can now kind of select the crazyflie now as one of their standards given models and just fly right off the bat. So so that was still in 2022. Summer of 2022 is when I actually used Webbots for the ROS 2 mapping project, which eventually resulted into a ROSCon talk. Of course, there was more about actually using navigation to toolbox in ROS 2 to have the crazyflie navigate through our office. But of course, a lot of the developments I was able to get on because I was able to connect a Webbot simulator to that with ROS 2. So now most of those examples are actually in Crazy Farm 2 already, except for the Webbot simulator. So yeah. A lot of time went in by, a lot of things happened, other things happened as well. So So there was not that much progress in that sense. Yeah, long story. But now, at least now, as of a few months, there's actually getting started tutorial with the WebPost simulator. So that will kind of put you step by step, like how to start up a crazyflie, how to fly with it, and everything. I just have to say that there were some questions on the forum before that. Do you need to use the crazyflie library for that? No. The current WebPods API, Python API, and the crazyflie library, Python library are still completely separated. But we'll come to that to the eventual plans. There's also kind of simulation repository documentation. We mostly, that's just kind of like documentation that's more, linked to specific pieces of software. Like we have it for the firmware, we have it for the Python library, and now we also have for simulation, which just has specific instructions for installation or just some specific examples that you can try out. So that is kind of like very short of what the process was until now. I hope that was kind of able to follow that for people that perhaps are not very familiar with it. But we have some ideas of how to move forward, and that's actually kind of why I kind of also want to have perhaps also the input for everybody that's joining right now, and then maybe has used any of the simulators. So at least our next immediate step, and it's actually already in the pipeline, is to have a crazyflie model for WebPods that works with ROS2. Because WebPods have a ROS2 module, it would be nice if you could also install something for the crazyflie for that you can make fly for it. Gazebo has been on a very slow burner because I like WebPods so much. But we should have better Gazebo support because a lot of people from the ROS community are using it. So there are plans to start that again. Also, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Crazy 2 project, but we also want to include better simulation integration into Crazy 2. There is already some simulation support there, but it's there's no support yet for how, as I call it, standard robotic simulators, which means it's kind of like the full package of the dynamics model, the rendering model, like Gazebo and WebPods, let's say. Improvements to our Python bindings. That's, I would call hybrid software in the loop. So it's not completely software in the loop. There are Python bindings of the controllers. I think all of them. There are Python bindings for the high-level controller, and as of recent, there are also some bindings for the estimator, the common estimator that is, I think, only the ultra-wideband input for now. But yeah, so those are, but it would be nice to further improve it, add more modules to the Python bindings as well. Also added like better linking to our crazyflie Python library. Like maybe it would be nice to start up a simulator with a crazyflie and actually start up a cflib Python script and then maybe like --sim or something like that. And instead of actually connecting to a real crazyflie through the crazy radio, that you will actually go and it will actually connect through a UDP connection or TCP connection with the simulated crazyflie. So yeah, so these are thoughts, and I will come back to them once we can have like maybe a nice discussion. I also would like to point out this one real quick. It's a discussion that somebody actually started recently. Let me just close that real quick so I can kind of show you guys the discussion of somebody that shared of an ICRA paper, and that's actually pretty cool. They call it Crazy Sim, and they actually used an old. This was the SimCF simulator I was talking about that actually had and software in the loop that you were able to that they actually rebuilt the crazyflie firmware to run from the computer. So they've kind of rewritten that to work with the latest firmware. They use also Graystorm 2 as well to connect with it, and they made a Gazebo plugin that was able to use that software, the software in the loop crazyflie firmware package in a Gazebo plugin that was able to send CRTP messages through an UDP connection. I hope you guys are still following this, but yeah, this is actually quite a nice explanation of that. So this is not my work. This is the work of what is Christian Lianas. So he is a PhD student at Georgia Institute of Technology. So this is actually pretty new, and I still have to kind of. I've tried it out a bit. I haven't gone too far to build it yet, but it's also kind of a nice option. So I just want to put it out there. Yes. 1 moment. Let me share my presentation again. Like I said, this presentation is horribly prepared. I don't have any slides anymore. But that was more of because I kind of want to hear about your experiences with this simulator so far, or just any other simulator you used with the crazyflie before. If anybody who joined today would like to share about that. Hello?
No?
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm still online. Great. Just double checking. Yeah, so kind of like that's kind of what I was hoping for, at least from this developer meeting, is that I was getting some input from the audience. So if anybody has either a question or maybe a something that they would like to say about these next steps, like, are they a good idea, are they a bad idea, are we going completely the wrong direction? Just putting some things out there, if anybody's still listening. You can open up your hands or say something. Yeah, Dimitrios, go for it.
Okay. Can you hear me, first of all?
Yeah, I can hear it.
My phone, okay. First of all, okay, I'm trying ever since you mentioned it, because this crazy sim thing sounded very interesting. I just can't find it. Where did you find it? Like,
it's if you go to discussions and show and tell in category. Yeah, 1 moment. Let me just
wait. Where is that?
Let me just open it up again. Yeah, because it's a discussion. It's a discussion on a support forum. Just somebody just like presented this, and it's part of an iCrowd publication that hasn't been out yet. But yeah.
Is it public on GitHub? There's a GitHub link. Oh, the GitHub link is for something older. Okay.
No, this GitHub link is an older simulator, which is called SimCF, which I thought was like existing already 5 years ago. I think is the latest update. This is the one. So this has the simulator in there. However, there's a lot of things in there that is very specific to the work itself. So that really requires some kind of debugging and adding packages that has been added. So, and there's also kind of like there's everything that's related to that particular research in there as well. So so yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out, but this is actually quite new. Like, you know, he showed this last week. I haven't really had the time to really properly try it out, but at least that you guys are aware of it, and then you can maybe play around with it as well.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask some other stuff? The reason, by the way, that I mentioned that is because you said that they've replicated exactly the firmware. I think that's the main point in software in the loop.
Mm-hmm.
You want the software to be in the loop. I don't know if you're familiar with the commercial autopilots for bigger drones, and
Peaks for
their method.
autopilot. Yeah.
Right.
He is. I think actually, Jaylong is the also answered in that, like, he's actually the maintainer of the peaks for simulating.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So,
is
but
this the only work that does that for crazyflie so far? Because I'm not very familiar with the packages that Bitcraze has put out for simulation.
okay, then perhaps I should have required a little bit more background information.
Right.
No, so like currently,
Okay,
what we have. Let me just oh wait, and go back to
I guess as long as you have anything that replicates the stabilizer loop with the estimator call, the controller call, that's fine, I think, right? Maybe the situation awareness as well.
Yeah, so just to kind of like explain, like what we now currently have officially is some support with the Webplot simulator, and that is so that's that example in the Webplot simulator doesn't have anything of the crazyflie firmware because it needs to be compiled with the simulator. However, if you go to the crazyflie simulator repository, which is okay. I'll just send it in I will just put it in the chat for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably easier to. So if you go to the crazyflie simulator repository, there are some more examples on there, including also a way to use the Python bindings that I just told you about. That makes a Python wrapper around a part of the firmware, which in this case is then the controllers, and then it uses those controllers, the same ones that the crazyflie is using in the Webplot simulator itself. So that's why I call it like hybrid software in the loop, because it's not the full stabilization loop, because not all the estimator part is still in there. But the Crazy Sim, they use the same method that, for instance, like PX4 used to use to build the entire firmware from for the computer, and they're able to actually run full software in the loop. So yeah, that's why it's so interesting to check it out.
Yeah, and also I would say because of the gazebo part, because it's still such a major player in simulation.
Yeah, that's true. But I would also recommend you to use to try out Webbots at least. Like it was much easier to work with, and it's also much. It's more a little bit more versatile in the sense of you're able to use more programming language in there. Writing plugins is so much easier than for Gazebo, and that's kind of probably also the reason why I kind of like. Didn't want to go into Gazebo because the plugin system was not that great. But some other people that are smarter than me already did. So, but yeah, we're like we need to at one point go into Gazebo for sure. But it's very nice. Do you have any more questions? I think there were also some other questions in the chat.
Sorry, there's actually a question in the chat from Laura that asked about the linking. Is it possible to connect the simulation from Webbots to the client? Is there an example, or is it something future?
Yeah, so the Crazy Sim project that I just showed you, that is not from us, that's from somebody else. Managed, they say, in their I'm just going to share my screen because this is this is getting annoying. Or they at least they said that they managed to actually connect with the crazyflie client with a UDP connection, which we actually have support for. I wasn't able to get that to work out of the box because there apparently are a couple of changes that you still have to do to the crazyflie library. But that looked pretty. Let me just show you real quick. Like, yeah. So if you have like, some kind of UDP connection, then you're able to also connect the crazyflie client to it. But I don't know how many changes you need actually in the library itself. But it is one of the hopes to do, because currently the API of webbots and the library are so completely separated that you really need to learn two APIs. So it would be just great if you're just able to start up a crazyflie client and make it take off there, or have a script and just do like I said, the -- sim, and then you can make it fly from there. So yeah, so you're right, you cannot find the repository because for at least in our repositories it doesn't exist yet, but hopefully soon.
We have another question from Vlad. It's not so related to the future of the simulator, but rather the current functionalities. So when working with swarms, how do you handle the inter-drone collision? Is it a way to make the robots transparent? So you try to use the rangefinder to detect other drones, but it does not really detect anything.
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's because of the collision model. Perhaps because like around the crazyflie itself, there should be a collision model. And that should have been detected by the rangefinder. However, a crazyflie is also quite small, and if you have the rangefinder right on top and you just do a little bit of a movement, you do tend to go around a crazyflie very quickly, like both in simulation and real life. I guess like Vlad, you were talking about specifically webbots, aren't you?
Yes, exactly. So I was trying like in Weebot to have multiple drones that fly at the same level, and I don't want them to like, fly into each other. And when I use the rangefinder, because that's like the modeling the time of flight sensor basically. And when I use it in the simulator, it's very like not so reliable, because it maybe sees a pixel like every now and then it sees that there is something close, but it's like flickering and not really reliable compared to the real life model.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that is probably a bug in webbots or something like that. I have actually not tried such a thing before. It would be weird because like at least with walls, it works pretty reliably.
With the walls, it's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. But like the thing is that on the crazyflie, you pretty much there is an extra collision model that you cannot see, but it's a disk, pretty much. But maybe the fact that they're also moving at the same time. So yeah, I don't know. That's maybe a good question for the support team for webbots, I would say.
Yeah, I was just curious because, of course,
yeah.
a hack would be to make them fly at different levels and therefore like just fly over each other.
Yeah, but then you have
curious.
the ground effect as well, so that's not going to be great. And webbots, it doesn't simulate that, unfortunately. I don't think Gazebo does that either. But like not the ground effect, I mean the downwash. Yeah.
But then it's fine because it's just like it simulates the drones being transparent. Like it will just fly over each other and ignore each other.
You can, I guess you can already do that if you remove the collision model, but I'm not sure what's going to happen with the physics though. Yeah. So I don't really have a specific answer for that.
Okay, no worries.
Now.
I'll try out some other things then. I was just curious, maybe
Yeah. I would advise you like if you have any questions for that, or like you can either put it like on our discussion, on discussions, and I can try to figure it out from there. What is actually going on
on the forum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, our discussions. So our discussions at discussions.bitcraze.io. Let's share that because we are getting quite a lot of discussion or simulator questions.
I think I found it.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so I think that's probably the best place for that. Yeah, good question. Although I wouldn't use it in real life to have a rangefinder. There might be that webbots has a couple of other sensors that you can use to indicate that there's one close by. But let's see.
Yeah, I mean there are a lot of hacks. I mean I can just use the emitter and receiver to send the real position of the other drone and basically detect that someone else is there. But I was looking for like the clean solution, but apparently maybe there is no clean solution.
No, I think maybe the clean solution is just if they're aware of their position somehow, and you have to probably hack that in it.
Yeah. Okay.
All
Thank you.
right, sounds good. Okay, so there was one more question, I think.
There
Christian
is Ben.
Lenz. Oh, is that
Ben Jarvis?
Oh no, there was the Christian actually said something.
Yeah. Sorry, Christian said
Oh,
that
he's actually the PC student who implemented Crazy. Welcome to our humble developer meeting. Nice. Okay. Yeah. So like Christian, I still have some questions for you. I was able to get it to work to a certain point, but I couldn't get it to work until the C plan. So I will probably ask some questions on the discussion threads for that, because I really want to try it out. It's really cool. Yeah. Okay. So Ben.
Yeah. The Christian said sounds good. Thanks.
Awesome.
And we have a question from Ben Jarvis. So first he says thanks. Can you just give a bit more detail on what a ROS2 model for webbots would look like? How would it be different from just using the existing crazyflie driver in webbots and the general webbots robot node for ROS2?
Yeah, there's no difference. That's why it's so close in the pipeline. No, the thing is that the current thing that I would like to do is to have a let's say I've written a PID controller for the webbots one, which is very simple. I want to make a PID controller that's a little bit more does like velocity and X and Y and height position control, but is able to take more twist commands and position commands and go on that. So that is one. And of course, like I need to kind of like make some decisions on which typical ROS2 topics it needs to react on. So I guess pose and twists. For non-ROS2 people are like velocity-based commands. So that's instead of you give it I want you to go to 1 meter per second. 1 meter is like you want to go to 1 meter per second. This is also kind of like with Crazy Swarm 2 in mind, because that actually gives out position commands. And so then I'm hoping to, if once there's a webbots ROS2 wrapper around, then we're able to kind of like connect it together with the Crazy Swarm 2 project as well. But yeah, like pretty much if you take the current example of the crazyflie already, and if you take any example from webbots of how to make your own ROS2 node with the robots, that's you pretty much are able to already build your same thing. I just need to make it generic enough that webbots or Cyberbotics, the company behind webbots, will actually accept my pull request. But it's very close in the pipeline. I just need some time to work on it. So I hope that's kind of yeah. All right.
Yeah, Ben says sounds great. Thanks.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's any other questions. Like it's already half. I don't know, like Christian, if there's any. Since you're already here, is there any other things that you would like to share? Like for instance, like what were your difficulties of implementing the Crazy Sim into like with the crazyflie? Like, you know, why did you have to do it in the first place? Just out of curiosity.
Hi, Kimberly. Can you hear me properly?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool. Basically started as an internship sometime in the summer, and I worked mainly with Pix4, but crazyflie didn't really have like a simulator platform where you can run like the firmware in the loop. And some of the other people in my lab basically need to like modify the firmware, and they didn't want to just send it into the hardware and not really know what's going to happen. So like if you're building like new controllers, new estimators on the firmware side, it'd be great if you can test them like in simulation in the loop. So that was kind of like the key reasoning. And you also had like the capability of putting it on Gazebo, which meant you had like a rendering engine for like laser distance or cameras, for like the AI deck, stuff like that. Probably the hardest part was getting it to work on like modifying the firmware, that took a few weeks. It basically you have to like disable like the drivers. You set up like a new CMake file to have a condition on whether a macro is present, and then build without the dependencies for like the drivers and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And then once you get it to actually build, you need to really talk to Gazebo. You sort of send like the heartbeat sensor or a heartbeat message to Gazebo. Gazebo starts sending basically the IMU information to the firmware itself. And then you have like some custom like software in the loop sensor matches that you have to like develop because they aren't present on CRTP. Same with the motors. So motors data is being sent to Gazebo, and then Gazebo basically runs what you have in the Gazebo iteration. Remember if you were doing the pub thing, yeah. It basically publishes to each motor, and then you can also open up a CFlib as well. So if you connect through UDP port 19850 up to plus N, however many drones you want, you can then connect to the CFlib to the Gazebo script, the plugin. And once it's connected, once it's in the heartbeat as well, it'll then start passing information to the firmware directly. Sort of acts like as an interface, because I tried to like connect it directly to the firmware, but you can't open two ports at the same time for CRTP. I had that issue. So I basically used the plugin as, basically use the plugin as an interface between the two. So it's just passing messaging through.
All right.
And it's also pretty good because you can create like a radio communication delay to simulate what would happen with your controller if you would have delay. So you can test for that. So and you can set up Crazy Swarm.
Very cool.
Yeah, I didn't want ROS2 to be if you remember sim_cf, they had ROS basically embedded into the Gazebo side. I didn't really want that because I don't really think that everybody knows ROS. So it also doesn't really need to be a requirement. You could just use Crazy Swarm 2 and set up through CFlib to set up your ROS2 network if you need it. So
yeah. Thanks a lot for the second presentation of today. Perhaps we should ask you to write a blog post at one point once the paper is out. But it's I would say that it's like to kind of comment on the SimCF when I looked at it and I saw how many changes that this person had to make to the firmware. Like we simply didn't really have the time to really go into it, or at least we didn't have the resources to spend indeed like a couple of weeks putting some elbow grease in it as you did for your paper. So glad you did it indeed for this firmware. But I guess it's because we're using kconfig now as a build system is also probably complicating things a lot. We just switched to that as well. So we cannot we're probably not very keen of switching to CMake, unfortunately. But perhaps this is kind of a way. I guess that's the way how PX4 is doing it, right? You use a Jinja for the CTL build I saw, and a couple of other packages as well. Apparently it's already outdated. I heard from Jae Young. It's very cool. I'm definitely going to ask a couple more questions about it when I dig into it. And see if there's any way that we can if we can have some kind of battle plan, like if we would like to implement this into the actual crazyflie firmware or not. Because there are a lot of changes as you said already. So let's see. But thanks a lot for explaining it.
It's about as equally as many changes as SimCF. Let me know if you have any questions as well on the thread.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, for the rest, I don't know if anybody has any remaining questions about simulation or our plans, or just comments of like good idea, bad idea, or something like that. And if not, then perhaps like just like some closing remarks is that, like, you know, there's a reason why this development is taking a little bit long. Like, because I'm currently going through some personal stuff. So I won't be really able to go full hardcore into simulation and ticking all of those boxes until early next year. But I'm definitely going to already start making some strides into some of these directions already. So just letting you guys know. So if there's any other questions, then I'll just give the floor back to Barbara.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. That's a wrap for the